Beers with Chad.
Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here. Another episode of Beers with Chad on a fine Tuesday afternoon. Sorry about the lack of sports content, non-powerlifting content the last couple weeks. Had USAPL Raw Nationals, which you can check out my recap of. Last week was away coaching that and then traveling home on Sunday and didn't get to see a ton of games. And then this past weekend, we had the SoCal Performance Summit. So myself, Quinn, Max, Dr. Mike, Dr. James, and Dr. Gabriel Fundaro were speaking and teaching all weekend long. So didn't get to watch too many games. So I've been kind of catching up on highlights and DVR and all that kind of stuff the last couple days. So here we are on a Tuesday afternoon with another fantastic beer from the fine folks at Tavour. And this is from Anchorage Brewing Company, The Experiment. So this is a sour with wild Alaskan blueberries. And as you can see, it's in a very fancy bottle, making me seem much classier than I actually am. Hopefully I can get this cork out. I'm supposed to be strong, but it's too small for me to grab hold of. And there we go. All right, so now that we have the small issue of getting the cork out of the beer out of the way, here we go. Anchorage Brewing Company, The Experiment Blueberry Sour, sent to me by the fine folks at Tavour. You can check them out through the link in my profile. All right, let's see what we got here. Cheers. Pretty tasty. Worth all the trouble to open it? I would say so. Make sure you check out the Tavour app. All right, so the big news in the NFL, the Cowboys trade for Amari Cooper, giving up a first-round draft pick. I root for the Cowboys. A Cowboys-Rams NFC Championship game would be fantastic for me to see as a fan, because those are both teams I like. The game would probably be terrible because the Rams would annihilate them. But I want to see the Cowboys do well. I grew up loving the Cowboys, as a kid in the early 90s, probably just as a front runner, but most 6- and 7-year-olds I think are probably just front runners. I had posters of Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman all over my room. My mom wouldn't let me have Michael Irvin. I guess I probably see why. But always loved them. And then my best friend is from Dallas, diehard Cowboys fan. And to save him from mental and emotional anguish, I'd like to see the Cowboys do well. And a more prolific wide receiver could definitely help them with that. They have, right now a bunch of twos and slots and Tavon Austin kind of gadget guy, but not a real number one receiver. And Amari Cooper is that. He should be that, but has he shown himself to be that in the last year and a half of football? Since the start of the 2017 season, playing with a very good quarterback in Derek Carr, Amari Cooper ranks 64th in the NFL in catches, 44th in yards. That's not great. That's not number one receiver numbers, really, even, as there's 32 teams in the NFL and he's 64th in catches. So pretty far down the list. And they gave up a number one draft pick for him. Giving up a number one draft pick for him, I understand, was necessary because other teams out there were offering twos. So they would have had to do maybe like a 2 and a 6. But it is aggressive, very unlike the Cowboys' offense thus far this season. So can it be what gets them over the hump? and gets them into the playoffs out of the NFC East, yeah, it could be. I think the NFC East is not a great division. The Eagles, despite all their talent, aren't playing very well. The Redskins, are the best team in that division right now. But 9-7 is very likely, I think, to win the NFC East. And the Cowboys, without Amari Cooper, are probably a 7-9, 8-8 team. But if he can return to some of that great play that he had early in his career, and that's the guy who's only 24 years old, I think he could help them get to 9-7 if the Cowboys actually want to show some aggressiveness on offense. So the other side of that trade, the Raiders. What are the Raiders doing? They now have stockpiled draft picks, 3 number ones, through the Khalil Mack trade and the Amari Cooper trade. So stockpiling draft picks, and that's great, but do they know what to do with them? John Gruden, who's got his 10-year worth up to $125 million contract, can he draft good players? When he was with the Raiders, Al Davis was really running the draft there and made a lot of terrible picks, but a few good ones as well. So I'm not going to give John Gruden credit nor blame for his draft picks when he was with the Raiders in the previous stint. So let's look at his time drafting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And these are players who have gone through their entire careers now, and you get to look back and say, was this a good draft pick? Were they a good player? Some notable John Gruden draft picks for Tampa Bay. Michael Clayton, a wide receiver. Cadillac Williams, drafted number 5 overall, running back out of Auburn. Davin Joseph. Gaines Adams, drafted number 4 overall at D-end out of Clemson. And Aqib Talib. Now, outside of Aqib Talib, not very good careers. Cadillac Williams, Rookie of the Year, then derailed by injuries. Davin Joseph did make a Pro Bowl or 2. Gaines Adams, really nothing from him from a number 4 pick. Michael Clayton, good rookie year, nothing much after that. So not a great draft history. Not a lot of names as I looked through John Gruden's draft history that were jumping off the page at me of people that he was really nailing it with. There's a lot of reports that John Gruden doesn't love Derek Carr, that maybe he doesn't think Derek Carr is going to be his quarterback as he goes forward with his 10-year contract and the Raiders move to Las Vegas coming up soon. So maybe he wants to replace him. Maybe he wants to replace him through the draft. The Raiders are going to have a very high draft pick if things continue this way. So a couple quarterbacks that John Gruden drafted during his time with the Buccaneers. Chris Sims, Bruce Gradkowski, and Josh Johnson from the University of San Diego. Not a much better look there on his quarterback drafting than his other positions. Granted, none of them were really high draft picks, but I'm not instilled with confidence by John Gruden's ability to use those high up draft picks very effectively. So we'll see what the Raiders do, and we'll see if they can take all these first round draft picks that they've been stockpiling and put them to good work in the 2019 NFL Draft. Don't look now, but the Houston Texans, my AFC Super Bowl pick, are in first place. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and they are going to occupy spot number 10 of my top 10 NFL power rankings for this week. They've won 4 in a row, and I say don't look now that they're in first place with some tongue-in-cheek. Yes, by the record they are in first place, but I'm a bit trying to save face by making that pick. They're making me look slightly less terrible right now by being in 4th place and their 4-game win streak, but it's about as weak of a 4-game win streak as you could have. The win over the Jaguars looked good at the time, but then the Jaguars got annihilated by the Cowboys shortly after that. So 4 wins in a row for the Texans, so I'll put them at number 10. There's a lot of teams pretty even in that kind of 10 to 14 range. Number 9, Carolina Panthers. Comeback win last week versus the defending Super Bowl champions. Greg Olsen going to be coming back this week from injury. They've only been getting 27 yards per week production out of their tight ends. With Greg Olsen, that will undoubtedly go up. The Steelers, they have 4 very challenging games ahead. Starting off with the Browns this week. The Browns have a good defense. They have talent. They don't always play well, but they did play the Steelers to a tie earlier. But I think Steelers coming off a bye, going to take care of business against the Browns. If they can win maybe 3 out of these next 4, which are all going to be pretty challenging games, I think the Steelers may take control of that division take control of it over the number 7 team in my rankings, the Baltimore Ravens. Best defense in the NFL. Joe Flacco playing okay, doing some creative stuff with Lamar Jackson. Their wide receiver crew, very athletic, a lot more speed across that group of receivers than many of those excellent Ravens teams had when they were led more by guys like Anquan Bolden. But best defense in the NFL. Number 6, the Vikings. Their defense is playing better. Very explosive offense. Kirk Cousins, he's not, I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but when you get to throw it to Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, they make you look good. Number 5, surging team here. Los Angeles Chargers, explosive offense all over. Melvin Gordon, great group of receivers, veteran, excellent Phillip Rivers to distribute the ball to him. Very good pass rush, and when Joey Bosa's back, it's only going to get better. They lost to the Rams, they lost to the Chiefs, they beat everyone else. The Chargers are a legit team. They're just going to get overshadowed a bit by the Chiefs in that division. The Saints, they got off to a really slow start. Week 1, they killed eliminator pools, including my own, with that loss. Huge loss to the Bucs. They got Fitzmagic all over them, and then that ugly game against the Browns the next week. And I think people let this first impression this season of the Saints kind of get them down. But since then, they've been beating good teams. I've got Saints number 4. Number 3, the Chiefs. Most explosive offense in the NFL. Defense still struggling, though they looked the best they've looked all year by far against the Bengals. If Eric Berry is able to return, and he's got some weird stuff going on with that Achilles, it's going to help the defense purely from his leadership standpoint, in addition to his play. But Chiefs, number 3. Number 2, the Patriots. Consistently, the Patriots adapt to the personnel they have. They adapt to the changes in the NFL landscape, and they improve throughout the year. They're doing that once again. They're just going to get better as the year goes on. Now, if they have to go to Kansas City in the playoffs, maybe I'm picking Kansas City in that game. It was a great one a couple weeks ago with them. And number 1, the Los Angeles Rams, number 1 by quite a bit. They have, in my opinion, the best offensive player in the NFL right now, Todd Gurley, who's scored more touchdowns on his own than several NFL teams have as a collective team. And they also have the best defensive player in the NFL in Aaron Donald. A lot of talent around them. If they can stay healthy, Rams are looking great. I don't think that they're going to go undefeated. That game at the Saints is going to be tough. They host the Chiefs, will be a tough game. But 15-1, 14-2. I think that's a very realistic finish for the Los Angeles Rams. So that's a kind of quick update on my thoughts regarding the NFL season. This morning I was listening to ESPN 30 for 30 podcast. Check those out if you haven't. A lot of really interesting episodes. Start all the way back, season 1, first episode, The Trials of Dan and Dave. Great one. This morning, it was All In, Sparking the Poker Boom. And what was really interesting to me as I listened to that, though I definitely remember about when I was in high school, online poker getting really popular. showing the World Series of Poker on TV and kind of watching that and getting caught up, you know, watching it for 45 minutes and being like, oh, where did the time go? I kind of just got caught up in it, sort of like an infomercial, you know how that happens. But there were two really striking things as they interviewed the producer of the World Series of Poker, the television side of things. He talked about improving how it was presented on TV and then developing the characters, the players. Why should we care about them as characters? And World Series of Poker had been on TV for a long time before it got really popular. This guy made a couple significant changes, most notably probably using the little lipstick cameras in the table so you could see what cards the people had, creating an omniscient viewer and allowing you to kind of know what was in the heads of the players as they, you know, either had good cards or didn't and were bluffing and all that stuff. But the reason that I wanted to talk about this show is because those two ideas, how is it presented and why should we care about these characters, are so many of the same things that I've talked about and I very interested and passionate about, of how weightlifting or powerlifting could be presented effectively on television. So you have the World Series of Poker event, you know, happening in this kind of smoky, shitty ballroom at the Binion's Casino with a lot of, you know, unattractive old white guys playing more or less, and something that takes, you know, hours upon days to complete. So they were you know, editing it and producing it to show after the fact. It wasn't being shown live because that would be many hours of events. And the same thing if powerlifting and weightlifting was to be presented well on TV and get people beyond, you know, the hardcore fans and people who compete in the sport already to be interested in it. It also could not be shown live. Even a very fast powerlifting meet is about 3 hours long, and that's just too long for people to care about it. It needs to get edited down to probably, you know, about 45 minutes, which would be a 1 hour television show, 45 minutes of content, plus commercial breaks around that. So you can't show it live. This isn't as important for the television viewing experience, but all that would really matter to it is one flight of all men's lifters or one flight of women's lifters. You know, on the men's side of things, because there is a plethora of talent in the super heavyweight divisions or an unlimited class, even though that may include some 308s lifters, like the big dogs format, that would be the best thing on the men's side. So you can go just straight up by weight. Who lifts the most weight, they're the winner. The women's side of things, in my opinion, does not have that luxury. There is not one bodyweight category on the women's side where there is enough depth of talent to create, you know, one super flight out of just the athletes with those body weights and have realistically more than 3 or 4 true top competitors in it. So for the women's side of things, I would think that this would best work by formula, pitting, you know, probably a flight of 12 women against each other, you know, just coming off the USAPL Raw Nationals and the USAPL and IPF. I firmly believe, and if you want to have an argument about this in the comments, have at it, and I'll partake, that the most competitive lifting and best female powerlifters in the world are in the IPF and the USAPL. So if we were to take probably the top 11 women from the USAPL by Wilkes, from USAPL Nationals by Wilkes and sort of notoriety, you would end up with a flight of Heather Connor, Marisa Inda, Tina Donishmand, Megan Scanlon, the incredible trio of 63 lifters, Jen Milliken, Jen Thompson, Sam Calhoun, top 2 in the 72s, Kristen Dunsmore and Chloe Dublin, the incredible junior lifters in the 84s, Daniela Mello and Amanda Lawrence, and the queen of the supers, Bonica Brown. Throw back into that mix as well Kimberly Walford, and you would have a flight of 12 women who are tremendous lifters, who the viewing public are going to look at and not think that woman is on a ton of steroids, because all of those athletes are, very stringently drug tested, and I believe with all of my being totally clean. You're going to get women who have interesting backstories, whether they are, mothers like Marissa and Jen, whether they are, college students like Daniela and Amanda Lawrence, whether, get into their professions and all that kind of stuff, what they do outside of lifting, because that's the key in making it marketable. And I think so much of what has made CrossFit successful, though there are a lot of other factors as well, as a television product or a Netflix documentary product, is it's not just how much weight they lift, or in the CrossFit case, how fast they run, or anything like that. It's who they are. You have to develop the characters. So if you want to show it on TV, you have to tell the story of the competition, show the lifts that matter. That's how it is presented. That is the difference that they made in World Series of Poker, from just showing 9 people staring at each other at a table with cards you didn't know about, to now showing you with the lipstick cameras what cards they had, so you could get in their heads, telling you about the person. Is it Chris Moneymaker, this guy who won the satellite tournament as a manager at a restaurant, or is it this old gristled professional poker player? Develop the characters. So show the lifts that matter and tell us why we should care about the people who are making them. From a presentation standpoint, combo rack and lifting in sleeves is much more aesthetically appealing than a monolift, because the monolift blocks so much of the view, especially with someone standing in front working the hook. That's really blocking the view. And sleeves is going to be better than wraps. Yeah, they're not lifting quite as much weight, but honestly, the weight is going to be so unrelatable to the viewers that if it's on the super heavy men's side, if it's 900 pounds or 970 pounds, if it's in sleeves or in wraps, is irrelevant. But if you have someone waddling up to the bar in wraps and they're walking like a mummy, that will sort of trigger people's a casual viewer's mind of, why the fuck is that person walking like that? Are those things on their legs helping them? I think it keeps it cleaner. Go with sleeves. And like I said, for women by formula, not ideal, but with that group of women that I listed, you're getting about between a 500 and 540, 545 Wilks in that group. Maybe a different formula, something like allometric scaling, or the knuckles formula could come into play, where I do think on the men's side there's enough depth of talent of heavyweight men where you could have a flight of 10 or 12 guys where at least eight of them are going to have like real podium shots. And then finally, the last thing, if you want to make it interesting, is it has to have no dead time. And this kind of goes for live streaming of powerlifting or presenting it in a produced, edited after the fact format. So part of developing the characters, telling who the athletes are, would require doing some pre-recorded interviews with the athletes that you can edit and produce into short segments to show 30 seconds as the bar is being loaded and they're walking up to the bar, or having sort of sideline reporter type of characters interviewing them in the back in between lifts, miking up the athletes and coaches so you can feel some of that hype as a coach gets their athlete fired up as they discuss strategy. It might need to heavily edit the language in some of those, but it definitely would be interesting, and you could hear as there's jockeying for position and attempt changes as it gets down the deadlift, the coach is talking at the table. I think in weightlifting that would be particularly interesting, hearing the attempt changes and stuff at the tables. You need to be constantly updating, if the meet is by formula, updating and this is something that should happen in a formula meet already for the spectators, like at the US Open, is there should be a separate screen that all it shows is like the top 5 or top 10 leaderboard by formula, and next to it it says, if so-and-so makes this lift, their formula is boom, in big numbers there, so you know what the stakes are of that given lift. And then finally working in, commercials, whether it's between lifts, between attempts, between the break of squat to bench, bench to deadlift, doing split screen type of stuff, where an ad is kind of going on here while you can see the action next to it, whether that's a less significant lift or time where the bar is being loaded or whatever. Not overly complicated in my opinion. If some of these sort of powers that be in terms of people who are putting on money meets, the group in Australia, the guys at Pioneer doing the tribute meet, the US Open folks were able to sort of get on the same page with some of these things. I think it could be very, very interesting that there is the potential for bigger sponsorship. There's big companies, American Express, Visa, who sponsor things like track and field, not a wildly popular sport, but if powerlifting has all these likes and views on Instagram and YouTube, and that is the currency of the day. So if it can be harnessed properly and presented and then shown to sponsors, well, if it's the Ford Built Tough Powerlifting Championships and it's going to get 1 million views on YouTube, that's worth it to them. They don't give a shit if it's powerlifting or rodeo or track and field or golf or football. They just care about eyes, and this many eyes equates to this level of investment for them. So it is something that is interesting to me. It definitely sparked my mind some more listening to 30 for 30 podcast this morning, all in sparking the poker boom, because it was a lot of the same things. It's sort of, how do we showcase this slow moving, potentially boring thing to a mass audience, and they did it extremely effectively. Millions of dollars being on the line was probably helpful in that as well. So that's Beers with Chad. The Experiment by Anchorage Brewing Company. It may be tough to get open, embarrassing you in front of your YouTube followers, but once you do get it open, pretty damn tasty. A blueberry sour. Cheers. You can get that on the Tavour app through the link in the video info or the episode info. Click on that, download it. They send you a push notification. You see the beer that they're talking about, you like it, click, add it to your crate. They send it right to your door. It's better than Christmas. Delivering beers right to your door. If you like Beers with Chad, go on iTunes, give me a 5-star review. Write something nice for me over there. Share the video with your friends, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. See you next time.